What happens to testosterone when men use intermittent fasting long-term? About what it may be doing to their testosterone over time. Intermittent fasting has become one of the most popular health strategies for men today. And for good reason. It can support fat loss, improve focus, and simplify eating. But there's a question most people skip entirely. What is long-term fasting actually doing to your hormones? Today, science gives us some honest answers. Here's what you'll know by the end of this video. You'll understand what current research suggests about intermittent fasting and testosterone, both the potential benefits and the possible concerns. You'll learn why the type of fasting matters, why calorie intake still plays a huge role, and what signs to watch for if you're a man using fasting regularly. No extreme claims, no scare tactics. Just an honest, science-based conversation that most fitness channels aren't having. Let's get into it. Before we talk about fasting and testosterone, let's quickly understand what testosterone actually needs to function well. Testosterone is produced primarily in the testes, regulated by signals from the brain, specifically the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. This system is called the HPG axis, and it is remarkably sensitive to external conditions. Things like sleep, stress, body fat percentage, calorie availability, and nutrient intake all send signals to this system. When the body feels safe, fueled, and recovered, testosterone production tends to be supported. When the body feels stressed, starved, or depleted, it may dial hormone production down. That context matters a lot for understanding what fasting does, what the research actually says. Point 1. Short-term fasting may not hurt testosterone. Let's start with some reassuring news. Several studies looking at shorter fasting windows, like the popular 16-8 method, where you eat within an 8-hour window, suggest that testosterone levels may not be significantly negatively affected in healthy men who are eating enough total calories. A study published in the journal Obesity found that men practicing intermittent fasting while maintaining adequate calorie intake did not show major drops in testosterone compared to men eating traditional meal patterns. The key phrase there is adequate calorie intake. We'll come back to that. Point 2. Prolonged calorie restriction is a different story. Here's where it gets more important to pay attention. When intermittent fasting leads to a significant and sustained calorie deficit, meaning the body is consistently underfueled over weeks or months, research suggests testosterone levels may begin to decline. This isn't unique to fasting. Any prolonged state of low energy availability can signal the body to reduce hormone production. The body treats reproduction and hormone output as a lower priority than basic survival. Think of it this way. If your body thinks it's going through a famine, it's not going to prioritize building muscle and producing testosterone. It's going to conserve energy wherever it can. So ask yourself honestly, are you eating enough total food within your eating window? That question matters more than most people realize. Point 3. Ramadan studies give us useful long-term data. One of the most interesting natural experiments in fasting research comes from Ramadan, the Islamic practice of fasting from sunrise to sunset for 1 month. Several studies on men during Ramadan have shown mixed results. Some found modest temporary decreases in testosterone during the fasting period. Others found levels return to normal or near normal after the fasting month ended. What this suggests is that the body may adapt over time, and that hormonal disruption from fasting may sometimes be temporary rather than permanent, particularly when overall nutrition remains reasonable. Point 4. Body fat percentage plays a big role. Here's a point that often gets overlooked in this conversation. Excess body fat, particularly around the abdomen, is associated with higher levels of an enzyme called aromatase. This enzyme converts testosterone into estrogen. So men with higher body fat may actually have lower effective testosterone levels as a result. Intermittent fasting, when it successfully reduces body fat over time, may actually support healthier testosterone levels indirectly by reducing that conversion process. This is why the picture is not black and white. For an overweight man, fasting-driven fat loss might ultimately support testosterone. For a lean man already in a calorie deficit, the same approach might put hormonal health under stress. By the way, if this is making you think differently about your own routine, drop a comment below. I'd genuinely like to know where you're starting from. Point 5. Cortisol is the hidden variable. No conversation about fasting and testosterone is complete without talking about cortisol. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone, and extended fasting periods, especially when combined with intense exercise, poor sleep, or high life stress, can elevate cortisol levels. Here's why that matters. Cortisol and testosterone have an inverse relationship. When cortisol stays chronically elevated, testosterone production may be suppressed. The body can only prioritize so many hormonal systems at once. Men who fast aggressively, train hard, sleep poorly, and eat too little are essentially stacking multiple cortisol triggers on top of each other. Over time, that combination may contribute to hormonal imbalance. Point 6. Meal composition during the eating window matters. This is probably the most practical point in this entire video. What you eat during your eating window can significantly influence whether fasting supports or hinders testosterone. Research consistently suggests that healthy fat intake from sources like eggs, olive oil, avocados, and nuts is associated with healthier testosterone levels. Very low-fat diets have been linked in some studies to lower testosterone. If your eating window is filled with processed, low-fat, low-nutrient food, you may be missing the raw materials your body needs to produce hormones effectively. Zinc and vitamin D are also worth mentioning. Both are associated with testosterone support in research, and deficiencies in either are surprisingly common in men who are restricting eating windows without paying attention to nutrient density. Point 7. Training type while fasting adds another layer. One more layer worth understanding. Men who do heavy resistance training in a fasted state, particularly long, intense sessions, may experience a more significant stress response than men who train after eating. This doesn't mean fasted training is always harmful, but it does mean recovery, nutrition timing, and total calorie intake become even more important. If you're fasting and lifting heavy regularly, prioritizing your post-workout nutrition within the eating window may help support hormonal recovery more effectively. The honest summary. So what's the bottom line? Intermittent fasting, when done properly, usually doesn't harm testosterone in healthy men. In fact, if it helps reduce excess body fat, it may even support healthier hormone levels. However, problems can start when fasting is combined with undereating, chronic stress, poor sleep, low dietary fat, and missing nutrients. Over time, this combination can create the kind of internal environment where testosterone begins to drop. The key point is that fasting itself isn't the main issue. What really matters is everything surrounding it: your diet quality, recovery, stress levels, and overall habits. Here's the takeaway. Your hormones don't respond to just one routine or trend. They reflect your entire lifestyle. If that lifestyle supports recovery and nourishment, your hormones are far more likely to stay balanced and healthy. Thanks for watching, and like, share, and subscribe for more. Take care of your health. It's worth it.